I, female, 31, and my husband, male, 30, have been married now for almost 4 years. For background information, I am from Europe and finally moved to the US 4 years ago. My husband and I dated for 2 years before we got married. Even though we got married earlier because of the start of the pandemic when the borders were about to shut down, we already had plans to get married the following year. This was not an easy decision for me, since that meant that I had to give up my visa, leading to permanent residency based on my career, and forced me to stop working for almost 2 years until the government approved the green card application based on our marriage. Before we got married, we were in a long-distance relationship. But because of work, I spent about 6 months in total in the US every year. The relationship with his family has always been very difficult. Before anyone even met me, I was accused of just being with my husband because I wanted to steal a green card, and 90 Days Fiancé was a family joke used behind my back a lot. His parents refused to even meet me for a year just based on the fact that I am from a foreign country, which made me a suspicious person in their opinion. His parents and sister also tried to talk my husband out of our engagement since I was a useless partner. In the beginning, I understood that there are people in the US who are suspicious of immigrants due to their political beliefs, so I decided to open up to them, talking about my career and interests, hoping that might show them that I honestly love their son brother. Unfortunately, this backfired, and instead of getting to know me, the information about me was twisted so I appeared suspicious in extended family circles, and got an awkward reaction from extended family when I went to family meetings. I never got an apology for that type of behavior, but when my husband and I got married, his family and I agreed to have a fresh start because at that point we were not even on speaking terms. Unfortunately, they kept gossiping about me and ignored me during our wedding and on most holidays, etc., even though they expected us to come to every holiday from Labor Day to Christmas, and accused me of dividing the family when we decided to spend one holiday not with them. These accusations were never addressed with me but were made behind my back. Fast forward to now. For the past 2 years, my sister-in-law, let's call her Brittany, has ignored me and does not speak to me up to this day. A few months ago, my neighbor approached me and told me she needed to speak to me. She said she overheard a conversation between my mother-in-law, Brittany, and my husband, in which Brittany sat my brother down and told him to get a divorce since I destroyed the family with my opinions, suggesting a way to get me deported out of the country, and my sanity was questioned and debated what was wrong with my childhood and parents for me to turn out this badly and be that outspoken. Moreover, my neighbor took notes of the conversation and gave them to me after apologizing for overstepping. But she thought I should know how my family treats me behind my back. This was very shocking to me. The reason why Brittany stopped talking to me is because of the conflict I had with her parents 2 years ago. In short, my husband and I did not go to Easter during the pandemic because his parents did not want to take a infection 19 self-test during the height of the pandemic. I did not feel safe around his unvaccinated family and concluded that I really could not attend Easter with 8 people staying in a tiny living room, half of the family unvaccinated, and nobody wearing masks in public anymore unless everyone took a self-test we would have provided for them. Coming from Europe, I thought this was a reasonable request. During a phone call with his parents, I addressed this issue and tried to be as careful as possible by saying that I know we have different opinions about infection 19, and I am not calling to convince them, but that I really could not attend Easter without them taking a self-test as recommended by the CDC. I acknowledged that this might be uncomfortable for them and apologized for that. But I was asking them if they just could do me this favor for this one holiday and take a test we would give to them. They got very upset, saying I could not force my ideology on them and that I could just stay home if I felt uncomfortable with their choice. Then they hung up. Since the phone call was so bad, I decided to write a letter, explaining again why this was important to me and that I did not appreciate their reaction. My husband and friend both read that letter to make sure it was not provocative and respectful. This was the first time I told them I was not okay with their behavior. Before, I always just stayed quiet when they insulted me. The parents showed the letter to Brittany, and she thought it was outrageous that I asked them to take a test and that I spoke up at all. There was a conflict resolution talk with his parents, but since Brittany is very provocative and told me she wanted to tell me during that talk what was wrong with me and the relationship with his parents was already bad, I asked her to not attend the conflict resolution talk, but I offered her a separate conversation afterward if she would like to address something with me. She was very angry about that and said that it could not always go my way and I needed to compromise. She declined. Then I was accused by his family that I would exclude Brittany unfairly and hurt her feelings, and she had the right to attend that conversation even though she was not part of the actual conflict. Since that Easter, I have reached out to Brittany multiple times, but she refuses to speak to me. Brittany told people that I would abuse her brother and manipulate him, that I am malicious and the person she hates most on this planet. I learned about this and realized the extent of her doing when I attended a wedding in the family 2 weeks ago. On multiple occasions, people came up to me and told me they did not believe the slander and were on my side. When I reacted confused, they told me about Brittany's accusations. Moreover, multiple times I had people tell me after a conversation that night that they were surprised at how kind and smart I am, and that they were told I was malicious and an idiot by family members they did not want to name. One example that came up multiple times is her accusation that I would just use her brother because I'm going back to school. I attend an online university in Europe, $600 a year, part-time after solely supporting my husband's business for 4 years. This might sound weird, but I really tried to get along with his mother and sister. I tried to meet them for lunch. They canceled always last minute, made thoughtful gifts, and messaged them regularly to ask them how they were doing. I am known in my friends group for being considerate and kind. I know I am not free of mistakes, but I deeply care about the people in my life. This is why I simply cannot take the gaslighting anymore when I am labeled as malicious and talked about constantly behind my back. It has been 6 years now. It is simply too hard. My entire family lives in Europe, and it is very hurtful that my husband's family treats me like this. My husband does not want to talk anymore about his sister's behavior and shuts me down every time I try to address his sister's new actions. What can I do to normalize the situation with Brittany? We want to have children in 4 years, but I cannot imagine bringing children into this family situation. I am very grateful for any form of advice. Thank you for taking the time to read my post. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. You cannot force someone else to change their behavior. That is up to them. Nothing you can do will change Brittany's mind unless Brittany decides she wants to change. You have a husband problem as well as an in-law problem. Your husband should be shutting his family down every time they disrespect you. Right now, they are getting away with bad behavior with no consequences because your husband is letting them. They do not care about your opinion or emotions, so nothing you will do can influence them to change. You need couples therapy with your husband because he should not be shutting you down. He should be taking your side on this. Do not have children with your husband until your husband is on your side and you have a strategy to deal with his family that your husband implements consistently and faithfully. If your husband is not willing to go to couples therapy or willing to take the lead on making his family treat you decently, well, it's not going to get better and will likely get worse. Then you need to decide if you are willing to be treated like crap. Have your children treated like crap for the rest of yours and their lives. Comment 2. What did the neighbor say that your husband was saying when Brittany was talking to him? If he was equally disrespectful, then I would be considering a divorce and separation. If he just shrugs both of you off, then that's still an issue, but he can work through growing a backbone and sticking up for his wife. I would recommend starting couples therapy. Also, cutting off his family completely from your life, that drama is not worth it. Let them know you will not be interacting with them as they have been horrible to you and you do not deserve it. As for kids, please make sure everything is solid with your husband before that happens. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I've got quite the update for you all. I'm still pretty new to Reddit, so bear with me as I try to untangle this complicated story. So, my husband and I have been married for almost 4 years now. We had a whirlwind romance, dating for 2 years before tying the knot. We had to rush our wedding plans because of the pandemic, but we were already planning to get married the following year. It was a tough choice for me, leaving behind my visa and career in Europe, but love won out in the end. Now, on to the juicy stuff. Remember Brittany, my sister-in-law who's been giving me the cold shoulder? Well, things have escalated. A few months back, my neighbor dropped a shocker on me. She overheard a conversation between Brittany, my mother-in-law, and my husband. Brittany was pushing for a divorce, accusing me of ruining the family with my opinions, and even suggesting ways to get me deported. She questioned my sanity and my upbringing. The neighbor felt so bad she even took notes and handed them to me. This betrayal hit me hard. I've always tried to be considerate and kind, even when Brittany and her parents were anything but welcoming. I've made efforts to connect, offering to meet for lunch, sending thoughtful gifts, and checking in on them. But it's been a one-way street. The backstory to Brittany's grudge goes back to 2 years ago. We had a falling out over Easter plans during the pandemic. I asked his parents to take an Infection 19 self-test, which they refused, and things got heated. I even wrote them a letter, vetted by my husband and a friend, to explain my stance respectfully. But Brittany took offense to the letter and to being excluded from a conflict resolution talk, even though she wasn't directly involved in the issue. Fast forward to a family wedding 2 weeks ago. People were coming up to me, saying they didn't believe the slander and were surprised at how kind and smart I was, contrary to what they'd been told by Brittany and others. It was clear Brittany had been spreading lies about me, claiming I was using her brother and calling me malicious. Now here's where things get even more twisted. My husband has been avoiding the topic of his sister's behavior. Every time I try to bring it up, he shuts me down. It's like he's in denial about the whole situation. But the real kicker came when I found out that Brittany had been manipulating more than just opinions. She'd been tampering with our mail, intercepting letters from my family in Europe. I only discovered this when a birthday card from my grandmother, postmarked months ago, mysteriously appeared on our doorstep, opened and clearly read. I confronted my husband about it, and he was shocked. He had no idea Brittany was capable of such deceit. We had a huge argument, with him finally admitting that his sister's actions were unacceptable. It was a moment of truth for us, and he promised to address the issue with Brittany. The confrontation with Brittany was explosive. My husband and I sat her down, and he demanded an explanation. Brittany tried to play the victim, claiming she was protecting the family from my influence. But when presented with the evidence, her facade crumbled. She admitted to everything, from the slander to the mail tampering. The fallout from this has been massive. The family is divided, with some siding with us and others with Brittany. It's been a roller coaster of emotions, and I'm still reeling from the revelations. As for my relationship with Brittany, it's at an all-time low. I've tried to extend an olive branch, but she's rejected every attempt at reconciliation. It's clear that she's not interested in making amends. The situation has put a strain on our marriage, too. My husband is caught between his wife and his sister, and it's a tough spot to be in. We've had some intense discussions about our future, especially with our plans to have children. The thought of bringing kids into this toxic environment is daunting. So that's where things stand. It's been a ride of drama, and I'm just trying to hold on. I'm grateful for the support I've received from some family members and friends, but it's still a tough situation to navigate. GF comes home crying from work and won't talk about it, but then I ask her sister. Oh boy, she gets revenge on her boss. Basically, my girl, who I love very much, came home crying from work the other day. Now, she works a pretty emotionally demanding job, so this isn't exactly uncommon. I always sit down and ask her what's wrong, and 99% of the time, she is very open with what happened. She is the type of person who likes talking things through. Well, that day, She completely clammed up and insisted it was nothing, even though I could blatantly see the tears on her face and in her eyes. I didn't want to push, of course, so I said, "Okay, we can talk if or whenever you want." She nodded and went straight to the bathroom. She stayed in there for over an hour. I finally knocked on the door and she came out, having been in the shower the entire time. Again, I didn't want to pry, but she seemed slightly better, so we just sat down and had dinner. She could barely make it through the meal. She was wiping her eyes every 2 seconds, shifting in her chair, acting nervous. I finally said, "What is it? What happened? Is there anything I can do?" But she kept insisting it was nothing. I asked her, "Is it nothing, or do you just not want to talk about it? Because that's okay and you can say that." She said she didn't want to talk about it. Okay. But now for days she has been moping around, crying in the bathroom, avoiding eye contact with me when I ask her what's wrong. She's usually a very active girl who likes to work out, and I haven't seen her touch her running shoes since then. She usually does her hair and wears makeup to work every single day, even when she's there at 6 a.m., but all of that is untouched too. I'm seriously concerned for her. I have no idea what happened, but it is clearly not nothing. Now the worst is that my girl clearly told her sister. I like her sister and all, but I'm not sure why she shared it with her instead of me. Her sister is constantly texting her, "How are you today? Good today? Feeling better? Need to talk?" My girl immediately flips her phone screen side down on the table when she gets these messages. Now I know what you might say, she wants to end things with me. I won't lie, I sort of had the same thoughts, but I don't think that's it at all. My girlfriend is a very emotionally mature person, more than me, to be honest. And if she had a problem with us, I know she would just bring it up. Regardless, I feel like if she wanted to break up, she wouldn't still be sleeping at my house with me. She would go to her sisters or her friends. And on top of all of that, the weird behavior isn't directed at me. It's just everything. She doesn't want to do anything that she usually enjoys doing. It seems like depression, but it happened after that one incident, whatever it was. I'm very concerned for her, and I honestly don't know what to do. There isn't anything I can do if she doesn't tell me, and not just her sister. Should I ask her sister? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your description seems to imply that some type of intimacy attack occurred. The way she is acting indicates it. She probably told her sister and not you because she is likely ashamed it happened to her. I wouldn't beat yourself up over not picking up on it at first. You sound like a good guy, and it's not always easy to think about something like that happening to someone you love. At least it wasn't for me until I found out how many women I know have been victims. It scares the crap out of me when I think of my daughters having to face the possibility. Comment 2. This is a perfect opportunity to work on your emotional intelligence. When we love someone so much, it's hard not to let our feelings overpower us. But this isn't about you. No matter what happened, it was traumatic for your girlfriend. Just be there for her. Sisters have a completely different bond. I've been with my husband for 14 years, but with my sisters for 34. Don't compare yourself to her sister and look at her as a teammate. Your goal is to help your girlfriend heal. Based on how you described her, she'll be okay. Sending you love. Now for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I figured it was time for an update. If you remember, my girlfriend was acting really off after a bad day at work, and she wouldn't tell me what was wrong. Well, things have taken quite the turn. First off, let me fill you in on some history. My girlfriend, let's call her Emily, has always been the rock in our relationship. She's the one who keeps everything together when things get tough. She's a social worker, which means she deals with some pretty heavy stuff on a daily basis. I've always admired her strength and her ability to handle whatever life throws at her. Now back to the present. After days of her moping around and avoiding conversation, I decided to reach out to her sister. I know, I was hesitant at first, but I was getting desperate. Her sister was surprisingly understanding and gave me a bit of insight without spilling everything. She told me that Emily had a particularly rough case at work, one that hit too close to home, but she made me promise not to push Emily about it. Armed with this new information, I tried a different approach. I started doing more around the house, cooking her favorite meals, and just being there without asking questions. Slowly, Emily started to open up. She told me about the case, how it involved a child in a situation similar to her own childhood, and how it was bringing back memories she thought she had dealt with. The real shocker came when Emily finally broke down and admitted that the child in her case reminded her of her younger brother, who had passed away when they were kids. This was something I never knew about her, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. She had been carrying this pain for so long, and this case just ripped open old wounds. Now here's where the juicy compromise comes in. Emily was struggling with the idea of continuing her work. She felt too connected to it, and it was taking a toll on her mental health. But she also didn't want to give up on her passion for helping people. So, we came up with a plan. Emily would take a short leave of absence from work to focus on her mental health, and I would support us financially in the meantime. During her time off, Emily started seeing a therapist, something she had always encouraged her clients to do, but never did herself. It was tough for her to be on the other side of the table, but she's making progress. She's also been reconnecting with old hobbies that she had let go of, like painting and writing. It's been amazing to see her rediscover these parts of herself. As for me, I've learned a lot about being there for someone without needing to fix everything. I've always been the type to try to solve problems, but this situation taught me that sometimes all you need to do is listen and be present. But wait, there's more. Just when things were starting to look up, Emily's boss called her. They offered her a new position, one that would involve less direct casework and more program development. It was the perfect middle ground. Emily could still make a difference without being so emotionally involved in individual cases. The confrontation came when Emily had to decide whether to take the new job or not. She was torn because she felt like she was abandoning her clients. But after a heart-to-heart, we both agreed that she needed to do what was best for her health. She accepted the position, and she's been thriving in it. Husband lied to me that he was living with his ex, Wanda, and her son. But then I contacted her. Oh boy, my mind is scattered, so I'm going to try my best here. A little bit of backstory on me. I have 2 children from a previous marriage, 8 and 14, that lasted 11 years before I filed for divorce. The reasons for my divorce were due largely in part to ex's addiction to pain meds and eventually other drugs, being emotionally unfaithful to me. This left me having a hard time trusting others and a huge aversion to being lied to. Once I felt ready to date again, I eventually met my now husband, John. John and I clicked immediately, and if love at first sight was real, that's how I would describe it. We both were in the same field, medical, and our personalities aligned really well. I was very upfront about my past and let it be known very early on that trust is incredibly important to me in a relationship. It was after that talk that John told me he had one thing he needed to be honest with me about because he felt the same way. He proceeded to tell me that he was currently living with a lady, Wanda, not sure of age but looks to be around 50, and her son from a previous marriage, 14, who he had known for a very long time. He told me they met through work, restaurant, when he was around 17 and became friends. According to John, he would do deliveries and help watch her son, and she eventually offered him to live with them due to him not having a good home life. So John took care of Wanda's son and went to school while she worked very long hours and took care of the bills. It was a known thing he would be moving out after finishing school, and when we met, he was a year from graduation. John told me he wanted me to know they had never been intimate or in a relationship. Wanda knew immediately that John and I entered a relationship, and I met her son, who is an amazing kiddo that got along really well with my kiddos. However, Wanda and I have never met due to her working all the time. I always had the feeling that she didn't like me though, and may have had feelings for John. I really trusted John because I knew a relationship would not work otherwise, and I couldn't bring feelings from my past into our relationship. He continued to live at Wanda's house until he moved in with me due to Wanda moving to another state for work. The reason he didn't live with me sooner is because his university was a 2-hour drive from my home. My feelings about their situation slowly shifted due to certain comments and things that happened. I questioned John about their relationship, and I explicitly told him around the time we were getting married that I wanted to give us both a chance to air anything out before we were married. I asked John about Wanda, and he promised me they had never been intimate or dated. I asked him several times throughout our relationship because I just always felt off about it, but he was always so seemingly sincere. I thought I was just needing reassurance and feeling insecure because of my past, so I pushed the feelings to the back of my mind each time. 2 days ago, we got into an unrelated argument, and something in me just had to know the truth. I messaged Wanda, and she told me that she had been with John 14 years on and off, and they had 2 baby unalivings together due to him not working during their relationship and the length of time it took him to get his degree. I asked her if they were having intimacy while he and I were together. She told me after she knew about me, which was immediately when John and I met, that they had no physical relationship and that she wasn't that type of person. John says the same. I do have texts from him to her telling her he met me and we were together. I had a mental breakdown for about 24 hours after finding out he lied. I snapped. I did some things I am not proud of at all, including smashing his phone and saying some very unkind things to John and his parents, who I found out knew all along John and Wanda were previously together. I have a 3-month-old with John and have already been dealing with postpartum depression. Being lied to brought up trauma from my past. There have been so many snowballed lies about this situation through the course of us being together. When I confronted John, he immediately came clean, but I don't think he understands just how hurt I am or how broken my trust is. He told me he couldn't believe I got so upset over one lie. He said the same thing several times to multiple people, even after I explained to him that I in no way could understand how he says it's just one lie when he continued to lie upon lie throughout our relationship. He would even tell me certain truths but say they happened with another woman, not Wanda. I feel very disenchanted and turned off by him in pretty much every way right now. At first, I honestly felt like this was a deal breaker for me, and it might still be. My children absolutely love John though, and he is a very involved dad. I also love him very much. He works full-time to support us all while I am still home with the baby. He has been a really loving partner and parent in so many ways, and that makes this hurt even worse. I never thought he would lie to me, especially in such a drawn-out way. When I asked why he lied, he said, "I was embarrassed about my situation and what you would think of me." I told him it felt like he tried to trick me into being with him and that he took my choice to choose for myself if I was okay with that situation, and I don't think I would have been okay with knowing he was living with an ex. Is it even possible to rebuild trust at this point? How do I go about telling him I'm way more hurt than he realizes and that I'm going to need a lot of time and maybe counseling to rebuild trust? Has anyone been through something similar? I'm happy to answer any questions. Edited Wanda's age to be more accurate. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. This was so sad to read. I don't have much advice. However, you shouldn't stay with him because he told you a huge lie and kept that story going on for 3 years. He also tried to make it all so easy by saying it was just one lie. Oh brother, come on now. In the future, he might have another partner and make you his new girlfriend, Wanda. It's just a theory, but he can do it if he wants. It will be so hard to leave, but it will be the best for you and your future self. I wish you good luck. Comment 2. Your relationship was built on a lie. If he went years without telling you the truth, what else is he hiding? Is Wanda's son his biological son if they were together on and off for that amount of time? If he's trying to downplay it and not recognize the amount of damage he's caused to his relationship, leave him. Don't stay for the kids because they will grow up with 2 unhappy parents and it will negatively impact your child in the long run. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I really appreciated the support and advice. I've got an update and it's been a tense couple of weeks. So, after the surprise Wanda dropped on me, things have been tense at home. John has been trying to make amends, but I've been struggling to even look at him. I've been spending a lot of time with the kids, trying to keep things normal for them, but inside, I'm a mess. Now here's where things get even more complicated. I found out that John had been secretly helping Wanda financially after she moved. He said it was because he felt responsible for her son, who he'd helped raise. But when I dug deeper, I discovered he'd been sending her money for years, even before we met. This was a huge blow, considering we've had our own financial struggles. I confronted John, and he broke down, admitting he felt guilty for leaving Wanda and her son. He said he wanted to make sure they were okay. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to it. I mean, why hide it if it was just about helping out a friend? Then, just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I ran into Wanda's son. He was visiting our town, and we bumped into each other at the grocery store. He was shocked to see me and blurted out that he thought John and I were just friends. He had no idea we were married or that we had a child together. I was floored. How could John keep our marriage a secret from someone he considered family? I had a long talk with the boy, and he told me how much he missed John and how he always thought of him as a father figure. It broke my heart to see him so confused and hurt. I reassured him that none of this was his fault and that John loved him very much. Back at home, I confronted John again. This time, he had no excuses. He admitted he was scared of losing his connection with Wanda's son and that he didn't want to complicate things by revealing our marriage. I was outraged. It felt like our whole relationship was built on lies. Amidst all this chaos, my own kids started asking questions. They noticed the tension and the arguments. I tried to shield them from it, but kids are perceptive. My 14-year-old asked me point blank if John and I were going to get a divorce. It was a gut-wrenching moment. I didn't have an answer for them. To make matters even more stressful, I've been dealing with health issues with the baby. We've had a few scares and trips to the hospital, which has been draining both emotionally and financially. John has been supportive, but it's hard to lean on someone when you feel so betrayed. Just when I thought I couldn't take any more surprises, I got a call from a mutual friend of John and Wanda's. She'd heard about the drama and wanted to give me her perspective. According to her, Wanda had always been in love with John and was devastated when he started dating me. She said Wanda had hoped they would end up together and that John had led her to believe that was a possibility. I was shaking with anger after that call. It was like every new piece of information just added another layer of deceit. I confronted John, and he didn't deny it. He said he never meant to hurt anyone and that he was just trying to keep everyone happy. But at what cost? Now, here's the subtle twist of karma. Wanda's son reached out to me again, this time to apologize for the confusion. He said he'd been talking to his mom and they'd had a long, honest conversation. Wanda had finally accepted that John and I were together and that she needed to move on. She'd decided to stop accepting money from John and to focus on building a life for herself and her son. It was a small comfort, but it felt like maybe, just maybe, things were starting to right themselves. Wanda's son also told me he wanted to keep in touch with me and my kids regardless of what happened with John. It was a bittersweet moment, knowing that this young man still cared about us even after all the lies. As for John and me, I'm still not sure where we stand. I've told him I need space and time to think. He's agreed to go to counseling, both individually and as a couple, but I don't know if it's enough. The trust is shattered, and I'm not sure it can be rebuilt. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.